What up? What up? Welcome to Buckets, the fantasy basketball podcast here on the Action Network. Every Monday, presented by Prize Picks. I'm your host, Dan Titus, and with me, as always, the homie and fantasy expert, Adam Koffler. Koffler, AK89. What's good with you, bro?
Choo-choo. The Jalen Hurts hype train is coming to the station, and we are absolutely pumped for today's, or I guess Sunday's, Eagles playoff game against the Bucks.
Yeah, we're recording a bit earlier because, hey, we're both Birds fans. We got to represent for the squad, Bird gang all day. So saying that with, obviously if anything happens tonight in the NBA, we won't know about it yet. So just be cognizant of that. But yeah, man, super hyped for super wild card weekend. This is going to be a good day of football. So I'm glad we can talk about hoops first, and then we can literally just kick back, chill, and watch some football here.
Do it.
So this is the week 14 look ahead. We'll recap all the notable news from week 13, evaluate some situations that may be worth monitoring, and then give you some usual waiver and scheduling advice heading into this upcoming week. Let's start off with the key injuries, man. We were fortunate to get some news on Kevin Durant. He left Saturday night's contest against the Pelicans with a knee injury. When I saw this happen, man, I couldn't help but think that this was very similar to AD's injury, which ended up being a sprained MCL. That actually wound up being the diagnosis for Kevin Durant. We saw James Harden go off for 27 points, 15 assists, and eight rebounds. But want to get your thoughts on this injury and what this might mean for the Nets in the interim.
Yeah, this is an interesting one. It didn't look like KD was like that hurt, but clearly something was bothering him when he walked off the floor. And then obviously the Nets want to be careful with their superstar as they have their sights set on the playoffs, obviously. So Harden and Kyrie are obviously going to see the biggest uptick. Do the Nets maybe, pay this $5,000 fine for each home game for Kyrie to play in it? Potentially. Do they need to? Maybe or maybe not. We'll see. We'll see if a guy like they could really use like a LaMarcus Aldridge right now for some veteran leadership on the floor. I know he's missed a lot of games. He's battling some kind of foot injury or something, but obviously Harden and Kyrie are going to carry the squad. If you need to get into the playoffs, the fantasy basketball playoffs, like James Harden is going to get you there essentially. And they've got a bunch of back end guys that could benefit here. Patty Mills is a name to look at. He's going to get a lot more shots. Day'Ron Sharpe even potentially, and Cam Thomas.
Cam Thomas, yeah, 20 points in 3 straight.
Yeah, so those are the guys to look at on the Nets. I'm not really interested in Kessler Edwards. I'm not really interested in David Duke, those back end guys. But I could see some streamers on the weeks that Brooklyn has 4 games. And then also my advice for anybody that has Kevin Durant or wants to trade for Kevin Durant because of this situation, if you're in a good spot, you're first, second, third, you're confident you're going to make the playoffs, the All-Star break is February 20th, around then. That's about 4 or 5 weeks from right now. And Kevin Durant should be back around that time period. Figure he comes back after the All-Star break. You could get him on the cheap now for maybe a top 40 or 50 guy if he's on a team that needs to make the playoffs and needs to get somebody right now to help them win. So you could take advantage of that. Get Kevin Durant on your squad for the stretch run for the fantasy basketball playoffs. So that's definitely something to consider, how you could kind of use this to your advantage now.
Yeah, we'll see how this shakes out because he's been given a 4 to 6 week timetable to rehab this MCL sprain, and it doesn't look like he tore anything, so that's a good thing. So it just needs the rest. So we'll see. But I think that is sound advice if you are in a position where you can afford to buy low on Durant and set yourself up for the long haul here. Next injury that was pretty significant, but I think we might have dodged a bullet. Zach LaVine injured his left knee on Friday versus the Warriors. He underwent an MRI on Saturday, revealed no structural damage. He'll be reevaluated in a week, but he is not expected to miss significant time. You got to imagine this is really just going to be an uptick for the DeMar DeRozans, Lonzo Balls, and we did see Ayo Dosunmu absolutely ball out. Like, I don't know if he can sustain a 27 and 10 performance, but you got to figure he earned himself some more minutes after holding Jason Tatum to 4 for 28 from the field. So, or 8 for 24, excuse me. So, yeah, I think the rookie might have earned some more playing time here.
Yeah, they've got a really tight rotation there in Chicago where they only play 7 or 8 guys. And obviously Lonzo Ball missed that game that Ayo went off. I just remember in the offseason, our boys Noble and Roosh, shout out Zach Noble and Roosh Williams, had Ayo Dosunmu on their podcast for an interview. So that was a dope one. And he's been balling when given the opportunity. Whenever he gets like 30 plus minutes, he puts up lines that are absolutely worthy of being rostered. So definitely a name to look out for. Probably gets somewhere between anywhere between 20 and 30 minutes per game, when Lonzo is playing. Obviously, he might still come off the bench. But yeah, as long as Zach LaVine's out, it's definitely an uptick to DeMar DeRozan and Lonzo Ball. Probably even Nikola Vucevic as well. Probably gets some more opportunities. And yeah, Ayo and Kobe White are probably deserving of streamer spots on your team as long as the Bulls have a favorable schedule.
Yeah, and I think Ayo was really his contributions last night was, or I should say on Saturday night, was really because Lonzo was out. But Kobe White's been playing well, so I expect him to probably be the priority ad, and then Ayo would be right behind him, just given how well he played on defense and offensively. But to expect him to shoot 9 for 10 from the field every game is definitely not sustainable.
Yeah, but his field goal percentage has been relatively high, so it's not sustainable. But he's also not like a 35 to 40% shooter more than likely.
Which is where Kobe White is traditionally, right?
Yeah, so Kobe White, you're going to get a guy who's going to take 20 to 25 shots potentially with Zach LaVine on the sidelines. And we see the tight rotation too, because Derrick Jones Jr. is out for 4 or 5 weeks as well.
Right, and so, Javonte Green was also getting some starts, and he's not in the lineup either.
Right, so they've got a very tight rotation, so that's very fantasy friendly, especially with a team that's got its sights on like the number 1 or 2 seed in the East.
Right. Well, now with news of the Nets, Kevin Durant going down, man, this is good news for Bulls fans for sure.
For sure.
And we also did get some reports out of Golden State that James Wiseman had arthroscopic knee surgery in December, and his expected return is sometime in February. Can't help but be reminded of Jaren Jackson Jr. last year when he torn his meniscus. He was out for around 9 months. They took it very slowly with him. It looks like the Warriors are doing the same with him. We'll talk about a couple other stashes later in the show, but want to get your thoughts on whether you think James Wiseman is worth a deep league stash.
Probably not. Like just a guy that hasn't played in a long time. Hasn't really played much in the league. The Warriors got the thing going on. I don't know where he fits. I think they're comfortable with Kevon Looney for this season at least. So really, like, I'm not looking to use one of my IL spots right now on James Wiseman.
Fair enough. All right, let's get into some hot players. Joel Embiid, his streak of 8 30-point performances came to a close on Friday night versus the Boston Celtics. He fell 1 short of the franchise record, so it ends up with him being tied with Allen Iverson and the great Wilt Chamberlain in the history books. We talked a little bit about Joel last week, but would you say this is the best version of him right now from a fantasy perspective?
Oh, yeah. And he also on Saturday night put the team on his back in the fourth quarter. I think the Sixers won the fourth quarter by 12 points, and they ended up winning in Miami by 11 points. And Embiid had, I think, double-digit scoring in the fourth quarter. So, yeah, he's been absolutely incredible. He's been playing every single game. He's not taking games off. He's trying to, like, show that this is his squad. I mean, obviously, at this point, like, this is his team. Like, 2 years ago, we were like, oh, maybe it's a little bit of Ben Simmons, a little bit of Joel Embiid. No, this is Joel Embiid's team. The Sixers are honestly better off right now than they were with Ben Simmons. If like I'm being honest about that, I think there's more opportunities for guys like Tyrese Maxey has really stepped up. Seth Curry has gotten more opportunities because more opportunities to handle the ball. Like he's a guy that's dishing out 4 or 5 assists a game that wasn't happening in seasons past, right? Like, so I think the Sixers really have a cohesive unit. They could get a little better by adding a piece or two, maybe a Buddy Hield type guy. But I think this team can make some noise.
Yeah, I think that they're going to be probably a first round exit out of the playoffs, maybe second round at best. They're just not. I just don't trust Doc Rivers really. His rotations are just really annoying, and I think Tyrese Maxey needs to be given a little bit more confidence. And we saw him when Joel Embiid was out. This guy was absolutely the focal point of the offense. Tobias Harris has been pretty regular, to be honest. Definitely not a max player. So I'd be curious to see what the Sixers do to make any moves to try to deal with the Ben Simmons situation. But it sounds like reports came out earlier this week that this could carry over into the draft. So, this is going to be Embiid's team for the foreseeable future. So from a fantasy perspective, he's going to smash. And I think if you're wise to keep him on your roster, trade for him if you can, do whatever you can because Embiid's going to continue to go off.
And the Sixers
Yeah.
are 10-2 in their last 12 games. That's a hot team.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the Miami win was their most significant. They were beating up on bad teams before that, but agree with you. So your boy, DeJounte Murray, his streak of 17 games with at least a steal came to an end on Friday night. More impressively, though, DeJounte Murray doesn't really get too much respect around the league. I think he's an all-star. I think you'd probably agree, but the Spurs record probably keeps him out of contention for that. But from a fantasy perspective, he's absolutely a fantasy all-star, probably fantasy all-NBA. He's tied for third in the league with 7 triple-doubles. There's not much more you can say about DeJounte Murray, right?
No, he was putting up shots in the low 20s when Derek White was out. Derek White returned on Saturday, and he only got up 17 shots, but he still had 18 points, 7 rebounds, 9 assists, and 3 steals. Like that, the typical line from DeJounte Murray these days is going to be around 18 to 20 points and teasing a triple-double with a couple steals, a few steals, something like that. And for a guy that handles the ball that much, he's only turning the ball over, 3 times a game, which isn't even that much. Like Luka Doncic turns the ball over 4.5, 5 times a game.
Yeah.
So yeah, this guy, I mean, last 2 weeks he's been a top 5 9-cat fantasy player. Don't expect that to continue, but expect him to be a top 20 guy moving forward.
And go to Toronto. We talked about it a little bit last week, and I asked, now that all of the Toronto Raptors are seemingly healthy, do you expect anyone to kind of take a dip? I think we've seen over the last week. I'm a Scotty Barnes owner, and he didn't really play particularly well. But one person that has been balling out over the last 10 games, Pascal Siakam, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 7 assists over that span. He is 35th overall in Week 13 coming into Sunday. Is this a guy you were looking to trade for? Are you holding? What do you think about Pascal and his long-term outlook here?
Yeah, we talked about this a little bit last week. Toronto has one of the best fantasy basketball playoff schedules, weeks 21 through 23. So yeah, I'm looking at OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and Pascal Siakam. I'd want all those guys on my team. Scotty Barnes, probably takes a little bit of a back seat to those 3 guys, more established guys, as the Raptors look to make a playoff push, a real life playoff push. So those, if I'm sitting pretty, and I'm, first, second, third place, I'm looking forward to weeks 21, 22, 23. And that's when those Raptors are really going to help you. So definitely something to keep an eye on. But yeah, I'd want all 3 of those guys on my roster for sure.
Yeah. And the next guy we're going to talk about, I definitely hated on him weeks ago because he was playing like shit, much like most of the Knicks because they were just hurt and they didn't really have anybody. But RJ Barrett in Week 13, man, 29.7 points, 5 assists, 3 dimes, 5 rebounds, 3 dimes on 53% shooting, 3 3-pointers, 25th overall coming into Sunday. Do you think that he can continue this torrid pace for the rest of the season?
I tweeted on Saturday that he was on a heater in his last 5-6 games, averaging 25 a game. I don't know that can continue. He looks really good. He looks really confident, and he's sort of been, on par with Julius Randle of late. The problem with RJ Barrett from a fantasy perspective is he's not really doing a whole lot outside of scoring, right? He's a guard. He's sort of I don't even know if you call him a point guard or what, but he only averages, 3.5 assists per game in his last 7 games. That's not a whole lot. The scoring is likely going to come down a bit from that 25 per game. That's not sustainable either. And he's not really a steals and blocks guy. And, his shooting percentages aren't that high either. It doesn't hit a bunch of threes. So yeah, I think there's definitely this might be a good time to sell high on RJ Barrett. Especially this is the highest his value is going to be all season, right? So if you're looking to cash in, now's the time for sure.
Yeah, I don't believe it. I have a lot of homies that are Knicks fans, and they are certainly on that hype train right now. And I'm like, you guys are going to be sorely disappointed in due time because this guy is one of the most inconsistent players that we have. Over the course of the season, he's shooting 42% from the field. This isn't sustainable. I'm selling high at the first chance I can get.
Now, just Barrett. from a real life perspective, I see some ascension for RJ Barrett. Like I think he can be an all-star caliber player in a couple of years.
You give him 2 years. I think he's further out than that. There's too many guards in the East that are better than him. But I mean, he could be a front court player, I guess, because he is kind of a small forward. But yeah, I think he's still I think he's still probably more than 2 years away from being an all-star. I don't know that I see it quite yet.
Yeah, and he's not bringing that much to the table outside of scoring, right?
Right.
Like Julius Randle's still the assist man there.
Yeah. Stock odds for week 13. Robert Covington, my God, man. 3.5 steals, 1.8 blocks, totaling 5.3 stocks per contest in week 13. Good for and on top of that, he was good for 11th overall through Sunday for week 13, man. He's been great. But I think there's been several Blazers that have really been catalyst for a lot of fantasy teams because of the injuries to the star players. Like we haven't seen Damian Lillard. We haven't seen CJ McCollum. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But, these guys like Anthony Simons and Robert Covington, Nasir Little, even Ben McLemore somehow became relevant in week 13. So, but it seems like Rocco, though, if you have him rostered, he's just been absolutely a monster on the defensive end.
Yeah. And like you said, we're going to talk about this, but, McCollum expected back on Monday. That likely puts Ben McLemore, who's been starting, to the bench. But again, Portland's a team that runs a pretty tight rotation. As long as the guy is starting for the Blazers, that's probably the guy that you want on your fantasy team. And then who knows what's going to happen with Damian Lillard? Like they said, he could be a few weeks out. Are we sure that Damian Lillard is going to play again this season? This has the feeling of a Paul George type situation where team is sort of on the cusp, probably not going to make the playoffs. Do they rush him back? Is he traded? I know he said he keeps saying he's happy in Portland. Is he happy in Portland? Like, does Portland trade guys, before the trade deadline coming up? There's a lot of balls up in the air there in Portland. But as long as guys are starting, those are the guys you want to roster.
And we'll get into the situation at hand for the Portland Trailblazers here shortly. But last person I wanted to mention that's been really hot over the last week, Jaren Jackson Jr. over his last 5, 17.6 points, 8.8 rebounds, 1 assist, but 1.6 steals and 4 blocks. I believe he tied the Memphis Grizzlies record for 3 consecutive 20-point performances with 5 blocks over the last couple of weeks. So JJJ has been on a heater, mainly because Steven Adams was in and out of the lineup with health and safety protocols. But this Memphis team has just been one of the best teams to watch in basketball right now. Must-see TV. They recently just lost their first game in 10 games to the Mavericks. But this team is for real, and you're seeing all these young players blossom. JJJ, Morant, obviously, Desmond Bane. This squad's deep.
Yeah, but go ahead and drop D'Anthony Melton because all these other guys are good. D'Anthony Melton isn't good anymore. So salt.
He needs to be traded, I guess. Taylor Jenkins isn't feeling him like that.
Zaire Williams is now getting like the 30 minutes that D'Anthony Melton was supposed to get when Dylan Brooks went down.
Yeah. Well, I think when I watched the Memphis Grizzlies play, Zaire Williams is actually pretty he kind of reminds me. Him and Brandon Clark are kind of similar. They can play multiple positions, but they're athletic and tall. And I don't know. I think that maybe they're preferred just because of their the way that they play with Ja Morant, because he seems to be getting them very involved.
And Tyus Jones is preferred. Everybody's preferred over D'Anthony Melton. Yeah. If John Conchar is preferred, like every single person on the Grizzlies, like you have my permission now to go ahead and drop D'Anthony Melton. If D'Anthony Melton can't be a thing with Dylan Brooks out of the lineup, like that's it. Like go ahead and drop that man.
Yeah, say no
more hope. No more hope.
So we're going to talk about some guys that return to play. Koffler teased it before, but Kyrie Irving, with news of Kevin Durant going out for the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe longer. Per Woj, there's real optimism that Kyrie Irving can return to a full-time capacity if the Nets decide to pay some fines. They haven't indicated whether they will do it yet, but this is huge news if you roster Kyrie Irving. You were not expecting him to I mean, he's definitely not getting vaxxed, but if there's this loophole where he can just pay some fines or the organization pays it on his behalf, man, that's a win.
Yeah, I don't know that Kyrie is going to be paying fines, but if he can get the Nets to somehow pay fines, just like he got the Nets to make him a part-time player, then I think that's going to happen. But he's taking a stand here. Like, he's not going to let the fact that he's unvaccinated mean that he's going to pay $5,000 a game to play. It's just on principle. But we'll see what the Nets are willing to do. I think they're the 2nd seed in the East right now. They're sitting pretty comfortable up there. But if they start to lose a couple games, like maybe we see this sort of thing come into play.
Yeah.
Might even be a good opportunity. We were saying like not to be invested in Kyrie Irving because he was only going to be a part-time player. This might be a good opportunity right now to buy into him for the cheap, if in case like something like that happens because of the KD injury.
Yeah, good point. And Klay Thompson, Splash Brother, returned on last Sunday, and he had a pretty decent week, I got to say. You know, for someone that's missed 2 years of basketball, he averaged 14 points, 3 rebounds, and 2 assists. Only shot 36% from the field, but did hit 2.3 3-pointers in 20 minutes per contest. And in this situation, I feel like fantasy managers just really got to be patient with him. He's only getting 20 minutes, so you see that ramp up. He'll probably get a little bit more efficiency. Steph Curry hasn't played particularly well over the course of the last give it 6 games, and that's actually he hasn't really played well since he broke that 3-point record, honestly. But I think it's really been because Draymond Green has been out of the lineup, and we know Steph Curry. I mean, he creates so many buckets for Steph Curry, so. You got to expect Klay's going to pick it up eventually, but I just don't see right now. You just got to be patient with him.
Yeah, and you're rostering Klay Thompson for points and 3-pointers, and that's pretty much it. He's not going to really do a whole lot outside of that. I don't see him, becoming this guy who plays 40 minutes a game anytime soon either. So definitely got to be patient. I mean, he's a rosterable guy, obviously, because he can drop 25, 30 points any given day, 5, 6 threes. So that's a guy that you want on your roster. But yeah, temper expectations and expect him to sit back to backs, pretty frequently for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Another guy that came back and made a splash, DeAndre Hunter. He returned and had averaged 14 points, 2 rebounds, 2 assists with 2 stocks in week 13. Good for 85th overall heading into Sunday. But I think the bigger news for DeAndre Hunter is that Cam Reddish was traded to the New York Knicks. So that just cleared the way for more playing time for him. The only problem with DeAndre Hunter is that he can't stay healthy. But either way, I think that this guy is clearly one of the priority ads this week if you haven't already.
Yeah, I don't think I'm as high on DeAndre Hunter as you seem to be. He's not a guy that's going to do a whole lot outside of score efficiently. Like he started along with Kevin Huerter, and Kevin Huerter didn't shoot the ball very well in their last game. I think he shot 2 for 9 or something like that. But he was able to add 6 rebounds and 6 assists, whereas DeAndre Hunter had like 2 rebounds and 1 assist. And it just doesn't seem like he's going to be able to get you those peripheral stats that you would need in a 9-cat league. So I think Cam Reddish not being in the picture is actually more of a boost to a guy like Kevin Huerter. I know I was hating on Kevin Huerter, a month ago or so, but that was with Cam Reddish in the fold. So one less guy who plays the exact same position as Kevin Huerter just means I'm that much more interested in a guy who can kind of fill up the box score.
Yeah, I'm surprised you're that low on him, considering that last year he was actually pretty damn useful. He was a very efficient player, doesn't turn over the ball. He averaged 1.3 stocks. I actually think that DeAndre Hunter, they're more invested in DeAndre Hunter than anyone in terms of the Atlanta Hawks. And they're also horrible right now. And who knows what they're going to be doing at the trade deadline here. John Collins isn't happy. I think actually DeAndre Hunter's stock is going to go up, and we'll remember this moment. We'll see how it shakes out. But
yeah, I mean,
we'll remember the time that you said Kevin Huerter was ass and that DeAndre Hunter was worse.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, DeAndre Hunter in his last 3 games, coming back from the injury, he's got 4 total rebounds and 4 total assists in 3 games.
He's been out of the lineup. We just said it about Klay, right? You got to be patient with certain people, but I mean, I think he's got the path to minutes easily.
That's fair. And also there is a chance that the Hawks decide to move on from John Collins, right? Like his name has been floating around. If John Collins is no longer a Hawk, like DeAndre Hunter's stock goes through the roof. Don't get it twisted. Like there's opportunity.
I literally just said that.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There's definitely opportunity there for DeAndre Hunter. But
yeah,
Kevin Huerter has opportunity now too, as long as he's a starter. Like he's gonna do more for your team, I think, than DeAndre Hunter.
Okay, we'll put a pin in that. Fantasy managers are probably pretty excited that Rudy Gobert has returned to the lineup. He cleared health and safety protocols. I have Gobert rostered in a weekly league. I benched him obviously for because he was out, but happy to have him back, and the Jazz are too. man, they were really struggling without him in the lineup, man. Their defense is toast without him. So they did go 1-4 over the past week without him there. But bigger news for Miami. Bam Adebayo set to return on Monday. He's only appeared in 18 contests this season, but I got to ask you, man, what does this mean for our boy Omar Yurtseven?
I don't know, because most most of the time a backup center like doesn't just come in and average 13 points and 15 rebounds, and actually 3 assists per game while Bam was out. Like he was getting more assists with than Bam was getting while he was like in the lineup. So you can't just put a guy like that completely back in the bottle. But this likely spells the end of Dwayne Dedmon. Like any value Dwayne Dedmon had, he's done. Like, but does Miami run out a lineup of Omer Yurtseven at the 5 and Bam Adebayo at the 4? Like, do they test that out? Potentially. But I think you have to hold on to Yurtseven at least until we see what Eric Spoelstra is going to do with the rotation. Like, if he's going to make Yurtseven a direct backup to Bam, he's only going to play 15 to 20 minutes a game. Like, you might have to cut bait, but for now he's a hold and kind of see what happens with the Miami rotation.
Yeah, because worst case, I feel like Yurtseven, imagine blowout scenarios or times they just may not need to give Bam a full workload because Yurtseven has been proven to be very good. And yeah, it's just hard. I agree with you. I don't think you can just put him back on the bench with the way that he was playing. I think this does spell the end of Dwayne Dedmon. But good news for Heat fans, and I think fantasy managers certainly excited to get Bam Adebayo back. And we'll get to some Twitter questions later on, but one trade that you were asked about was involving Bam, so want to get your take on that. Let's go into the Week 14 schedule. We got 23 teams playing 4 games this week, so the most that I think we've seen all season. So plenty of opportunities on the waiver wires to pick up a lot of people. We got 4 teams playing 3 games. Those are the Cleveland Cavaliers, the Denver Nuggets, Minnesota Timberwolves, and the Phoenix Suns. And then 3 teams that play only 2 games, the ones that you probably won't be too interested in for this fantasy week: the Houston Rockets, the New Orleans Pelicans, and the Sacramento Kings. So talked about it at the top of the show. I want to talk about some situations that are worth monitoring, and we touched on it a little bit earlier. Let's talk about the Blazers to kick it off here. Anthony Simons just playing absolutely outstanding basketball. On Saturday night, he dropped 31 points, 7 assists, hit another 7 3-pointers. He's just been playing outside of his mind, and I'm going to ask 2 questions. One, is Anthony Simons a sell high for you or a hold? And in real life basketball, do you think he's making Dame Lillard expendable?
Damn. This is a tough one. This is like there's a lot of angles here. We're talking about a guy who averaged 28.3 points and 8.2 assists in his last 6 games. Like that's not, you don't just, a regular dude doesn't do that.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, doesn't matter like how many minutes you're getting. Regular guys don't do that. So it is absolutely possible that the Blazers think that Lillard is more expendable as a result. I mean, Anthony Simons is like 20 years old, and Lillard's not getting any younger.
And let's be honest, the abdominal surgery, he's been on the trade, rumored to be on the trade block. I think this is the point of time if I'm a Blazers management, I'm like, let's rebuild this. Let's sell Lillard for what we can get. We still got CJ McCollum. If you want to still keep a pinnacle piece of your identity there, you still got Nurk. I think you still got assets, man. I think this is where you trade Damian Lillard, but this is fantasy basketball, so it's kind of tough.
I don't disagree that this makes him a little bit more expendable. And I've seen takes now where CJ McCollum is returning on Monday. Does that mean that Anthony Simons is like a sell high? Like I don't even know. Like I don't think so. Like I think Anthony Simons is going to average 28 and 8 with CJ McCollum back there in the backcourt. But Anthony Simons can still be a 20-point scorer with 5-6 assists per game. Like he's taking on the point guard role essentially, where CJ McCollum can still be the 2 and Simons can be the 1. Like we haven't seen that from Simons previously. Like before, when he would come in and get 30, 35 minutes a game because some starters were out, like he put up like 20, 25 points and like 1 assist, but he's not doing that now. He's become the point guard for this team, and I don't think he's a sell high actually with even with CJ McCollum coming back. So, you picked him up. Congratulations. Like, he has the chance to be one of those like quote unquote league winners if Damian Lillard doesn't come back or is traded.
Right. And I think that's the biggest thing about his value is, like, even if he doesn't get traded, there's still a chance that he doesn't come back, because Portland right now sits, what are they? They are 17-25, 10th in the Western Conference. So they're in the playoff tournament territory, but yeah, it's just not looking they're not real serious championship contenders at this point. So what are you really buying yourself? Just time, I guess.
And Simons is a part of their future. So they're gonna give all the reins to Anthony Simons now and see what he can do. So
interesting.
I mean, I don't like people say sell high. Like, what are you gonna sell high for? Someone gonna give you Jaren Jackson Jr. for Anthony Simons? Like, probably not.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could get that, sure, go ahead and do that. But I'm cool holding Anthony Simons.
Or maybe you trade him if you have Anthony Simons. Maybe you trade him to the person that has Damian Lillard, and then maybe get something out of that. I don't know. But yeah, it's an interesting scenario how it's going to shake out. But want to go to another scenario here. Malcolm Brogdon, he made his return to play in week 13, and then he quickly left with an Achilles. He re-injured his Achilles. So you got to think, man, it's not looking good for him. Another guy that's on the trade block. Indiana's going nowhere. They already said that they're floating out offers for Sabonis and Miles Turner and probably Brogdon, to be honest. But now he's probably hurting his trade market here with this injury. But who do you think benefits from Brogdon being out a little bit longer?
I think the biggest beneficiaries in Indiana are Karis LeVert and Justin Holiday. Those two guys seem to be the guys that are going to get more shots. And Justin Holiday is playing minutes in the mid to upper 30s whenever Malcolm Brogdon doesn't play. So if he's out there on the waiver wire, in week 14, the Pacers play 4 games. And it's a very favorable 4-game schedule with 2 of those games coming on slates where there's only 3 games, Thursday and Saturday. That's an awesome schedule for the Pacers. So anybody that's going to be playing 30+ minutes for Indiana, especially a guy like Justin Holiday, who can light it up from 3 and get you some steals, he needs to be rostered this week. Absolutely, go ahead and pick him up.
Yeah, feel that. I don't really have much of a take on the Pacers situation. I think Karis LeVert's probably going to be the biggest beneficiary there. So, I don't think on the waiver, Kiefer Sykes, I think his time is up.
The team sucks.
Yeah, they're not good. Right.
Like, they need to, like, speak about a team that needs to blow it up. Like those pieces don't work together. No. Like, Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis don't work together. Malcolm Brogdon's always hurt. Karis LeVert's not a guy who's going to win ball games. Like, something needs to happen in Indiana. And obviously they brought up the rumors, months ago, and we haven't seen anything, come to fruition, but we've got a few more weeks till the deadline, and something's got to happen there in Indiana.
Yeah, this one is a pretty interesting story here. Jrue Holiday seems to continue to be on the injury report, questionable. Then he gets ruled out a day in advance. He's still battling an ankle injury. And for what it's worth, Coach Bud said, I think he's making progress. He's in a good place. So we'll just see how long it takes. I don't like that quote. We'll see how long it takes. So you got to expect Grayson Allen becomes fantasy relevant yet again.
Yeah, Grayson Allen will continue to be fantasy relevant. Shouldn't have told anybody to sell high on Bobby Portis. He looks like a mainstay. He looks like a mainstay in the starting 5.
He's a dude.
Yeah, he's been incredible for the Bucks this season, putting up top 50 numbers in 9 cat leagues. Wes Matthews continues to start, but he's not a guy I want to roster. And then, like, they've got a bunch of fringe guys, right? Like Pat Connaughton, Dante DiVincenzo, Jordan Nwora.
Yeah.
The only time I want those guys if they had a favorable 4-game schedule, but other than that, like, those guys can probably be left on the bench as they sort of cannibalize one another when all healthy. So yeah, Grayson Allen gets the biggest uptick for me when Jrue Holiday sits, and he's, like you said, been ruled out 24 hours in advance, and it doesn't sound very optimistic from Coach Bud right now.
Yeah, and I picked up Grayson Allen in our competitive league. Man, I'm dealing with injuries. I got Paul George and AD on the IR, man. I'm just whooping ass right now. I'm loving it. My picks are just on point. Want to talk to you about Richaun Holmes. I know you've been a big fan for years, and he just can't seem to just play this year. I don't know what it is, man. It's an eye thing. It's a protocol thing. I don't know what the next thing is, but he's supposed to be making his return. So do you think he's still a buy low candidate right now? This is probably, if he's coming back, this is probably your last opportunity, right?
It has to be a buy low. Like, the guy's only played 5 games in the last, like, month and a half. So he's
It can only go
right now,
up.
like his value really can only go up. But when he came, right. He's always got an eye injury, or I feel like he's been in health and safety protocols like 6 times. Actually, if I remember correctly, when the Kings were first in the bubble, didn't Richaun Holmes like step foot outside of his room and like he got placed in health and safety protocols for like 14
Yeah.
days or
Yeah.
something like that? Like this dude can't catch a break, but like when he's on the floor, he's amazing. Like from a fantasy perspective. So all they have in front of him is what Alex Len and Damian Jones. So yeah, there's the only place for Richaun Holmes' value to go is up, and it looks like he's going to be back. You know, hopefully it could be today when we're recording, or early next week. So if you kind of want to take a stab on a buy low guy, Richaun Holmes, there's nobody better to do that with right now than Richaun Holmes.
I might buy some shares myself. And lastly, want to talk about the Wizards. Their front court is an absolute mess. Daniel Gafford, he's got to be finished because on Saturday, he got 11 minutes. Thomas Bryant got 10 minutes. Montrezl Harrell was the most productive out of both of them in 16 minutes. I think it was like 16 minutes. But it's not good. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on Daniel Gafford here? I'm not picking up Thomas Bryant. I think this might be the end of Gafford.
Yeah, and actually, if you listen to this podcast, we talked about this. We talked about the fact that Daniel Gafford's best comp is Thomas Bryant. They essentially play the same position. They're the same kind of big man, except Thomas Bryant can step out and hit the three. But the Wizards really don't need that out of their big man. Like they have plenty of guys that can shoot threes. Dinwiddie, Kuzma, Kispert. Like they're a good 3-point shooting team. They don't need that from the center position. And Montrezl Harrell is the only big man out of those three that's going to give you something different, right? Off the bench, he's going to give you that energy. It's a totally different thing. So I'm totally cool, like hanging on to Montrezl Harrell. He's can get you 18 and 10, any game. But yeah, Thomas Bryant and Daniel Gafford, they're going to like split minutes. They're essentially going to be what Wendell Carter and Mo Bamba were in 2020. When Wendell Carter was starting, Mo Bamba was coming off the bench. Neither of them saw their ceiling because they were only getting 20 to 25 minutes per game. So I think we're going to see something similar in Washington, unless obviously one of them gets hurt. And then I'm okay picking up the other one, right? But until that happens, you can drop Daniel Gafford and you can drop Thomas Bryant.
Agreed. Yeah, they're going to cannibalize each other here. It's an ugly situation. Want no parts of it. Unfortunately, I have Gafford. So it's been real, bruh. I enjoyed those.
You should have sold. You should have sold.
Yeah.
I would have bought him. He had 8 blocks. You should have sold him when he had 8 blocks.
100%. But I needed those blocks at the time. But let's get into the waivers. So we talked about quite a few of these names. I'm going to break it out by backcourt and front court. Y'all can decipher where you want to play these guys. But we talked about Ayo Dosunmu, Kobe White, Grayson Allen. One guy that I think I've been talking about, and I've included him in my fantasy forecast article over the last 3 weeks, and that's Facu Campazzo. I think he's been great, and he's been outplaying Monty Morris here. He had a double-double earlier in the week in a blowout win against the Portland Trailblazers, but he gives you stocks. He gives you a lot of dimes. I mean, he's kind of like an Alex Caruso light because he doesn't score a lot sometimes, and then he'll give you other statistical categories. So I think he's definitely someone you can eye.
Just before you continue, they have the worst kind of 3-game schedule this week. Each one of their games comes on a day where there's 11 games. There's 11 games on the slate. So hold that thought on Campazzo.
Yeah, let me. This week. I might have to drop him tonight. Actually,
no. I mean, no. He like you said, like if you need assists and like you need to plug those in your lineup, like maybe put somebody else on the bench. And obviously, people always have like these, health and safety protocol issues. So it's not a guy that necessarily you don't want to pick up because of that reason. Just understand that the Denver Nuggets have one of the least favorable schedules in Week 14.
Yeah, good point. Devin Vassell also, I think he's definitely, Derek White obviously came back, but Devin Vassell has held 9 category head-to-head league value all season. So him and Lonnie Walker doesn't matter. They're still both eating over here. So I think you could definitely pick him up if he's on the waivers. Adam likes Kevin Huerter. I got burned by him earlier in the season, so I'm a pass on him. But another guy that's been quietly impressive, more or less, as a waiver pickup, streamable, Eric Bledsoe. Reggie Jackson's been god-awful lately, and really just the Clippers in general. We'll talk about a couple front court players here. I know you're high on Amir Coffey, and I had him a couple weeks ago, dropped him just because I needed to, address some other priority ads. But I think Amir Coffey has actually carved out a nice little role here with the news that Paul George is probably going to be there's a very good risk. I mean, we talked about this weeks ago, whether he's going to shut it down. And with the Clippers nose diving in the standings here, I think they're sitting in right in front of the Portland Trailblazers. So yeah, they're going nowhere fast. So you got to expect.
Coffee's averaging 35 minutes per game in his last 4 games and has scored 18 plus in 3 of those. And he's getting other, numbers like he's getting like 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He's got 6 steals in those 4 games.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is definitely a rosterable guy. Because I don't trust that Paul George come back anytime soon.
No, I don't either. I've been really impressed by the play of Trey Lyles. Kelly Olynyk could be coming back soon. He was on the injury report as doubtful, which is actually an upgrade from where he was before. So, Trey Lyles' season might be ending soon, but he's just been absolutely great. I would still hold on to him because there's still going to be some ramp up time for Kelly Olynyk, and Detroit is god awful. So, I think Trey Lyles has some staying power until Jeremy Grant comes back, but we haven't really got an update on him either. Another guy, Cam Johnson, we were just touting him just a couple weeks ago, but he's now out with a sprained ankle. Jay Crowder is now getting his minutes that he was getting prior to going out with health and safety protocol. So if he's out there floating on your waivers, he had a couple good games. You know what he does, where his pedigree is. He gives you threes, steals, and shoots a pretty good percentage. But I know you're high on a Green in the Nuggets, and that's Jeff Green. We just talked about Denver's grueling schedule, but with JaMychal Green out, you think Jeff Green has some staying power here?
Oh, absolutely. And Jeff Green on Yahoo gives you that center eligibility too. He plays small forward, power forward, and center. That's huge, especially if people that are starting 2 centers. And obviously the Nuggets don't have the best schedule this week, but I think you hold him through that schedule, especially if JaMychal Green is continues to be in health and safety protocols. The Nuggets are pretty thin up front, with obviously Michael Porter Jr. out since the beginning of the season. So yeah, Jeff Green's definitely a guy. He's been putting up 23 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists in his last 2 games. So he's definitely got some staying power, and that center eligibility is money.
Yeah, Nuggets is going through tons of injuries this season, man. It's a testament to Nikola Jokic, who's just absolutely
holding it down.
Beast. So we talked about the Portland situation. Nasir Little, I think he still carries value. He's not really affected by the CJ McCollum return. Kevon Looney has been playing pretty well with Draymond out, but I don't expect with the Warriors kind of going in and out and not really playing too well. I think Draymond's probably going to be returning soon. So Adam did mention Day'Ron Sharpe. I think he has a lot of upside here with Kevin Durant's injury. But wanted real quick to ask you, do you know who leads the league in 3-point percentage this year?
3-point percentage?
Yeah.
Great question. Otto Porter.
No. PJ Tucker.
What?
Yeah.
Wow. That corner three is just money.
That corner 3 is like Bruce Bowen-esque, man. It's money.
Wow.
Yeah. Wild stat. I was really surprised to see that. If you look at the list actually of the people that are the top 5 in 3-point percentage this year, it's none of the main people that you would expect. Luke Kennard's up there. Several different.
But I would expect Luke Kennard over PJ Tucker.
I wouldn't expect either of them to be there. But it's pretty wild. All right. And then wanted to get your thoughts on, you wrote down Marvin Bagley here. Also see stashing Olynyk and your boy Isaiah Hartenstein. And which one do you want to talk about, and why do you like those guys?
So Isaiah Hartenstein worries me a little bit. I loved him early in the season. The problem now is Serge Ibaka's there too. So now they got 3 big men, right? Vying for minutes. Zubac starts, Ibaka off the bench, and Hartenstein, like they're all kind of the same. Hartenstein brings a lot of energy off the bench, but if he's only seeing 13 to 15 minutes per game, he could probably be left on the bench as long as Ibaka's healthy. Kelly Olynyk is a guy that I'd be willing to stash because we saw what he did in Houston last season. With a bad roster, it's something similar in Detroit. Veteran presence down the stretch. He could be pretty fantasy relevant here moving forward. And Detroit does have one of the most favorable fantasy basketball playoff schedules. So definitely Olynyk as a guy to stash. And like you said, he's doubtful on Sunday. So we could see him back, sometime next week in week 14. And who was the other guy you mentioned?
The other one was Marvin Bagley.
Yeah, Marvin Bagley, man. He put up a season high 26 points of the night. So as long as he's starting, he's definitely a guy that has some staying power and should be rostered if he's going to be putting up numbers like that.
Fair enough. All right, let's go through a really quick fire round of Twitter questions. Shout out to Charles Lewis 325. He wants to know, should he drop DeAnthony Melton for DeAndre Hunter?
Yes.
Are you going to recommend that he picks up Kevin Huerter instead?
Yes, he should pick up both.
um, AD or SD Hillian 35. Would you trade Bradley Beal for Bam Adebayo or Anthony Edwards?
So his question actually was, would you try to acquire Bam Adebayo and give up either Bradley Beal or Anthony Edwards? And
Oh, okay.
my answer to him was no, I wouldn't do that. Right? You have this emerging Omer Yurtseven. Honestly, like that, I'm being serious about that. You got Kyle Lowry and Jimmy Butler taking up a lot of the usage and a lot of the assist numbers. Right? We've seen Bam's assist numbers way down from a season ago with Lowry there in town. So I think there's a lot more value to be had in both Bradley Beal and Anthony Edwards. So no, I would not try to acquire Bam Adebayo for either one of those guys.
And Edwards is a top 24 player over the course of the season. So
Yeah.
I'm not trading for Anthony Edwards. I wouldn't be. I mean, yeah, I would love to have Anthony Edwards, but no one's going to do that. Bradley Beal, though, I could see the case only because he's unvaxxed, and this is the second time he's gone through protocols. I don't know. I mean, maybe he gets antibodies. I don't know if I want that headache, but it depends on your team needs. Like if you don't need assists, then why are you going for Bradley Beal? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
I probably wouldn't do it.
I think I'd still rather the unvaxxed Beal, to be honest.
Interesting. All right. And Bill Lillian. Yeah, Lillian. Bill Lillian, shout out to him. Should you hold Alperen Sengun or pick up Mitchell Robinson?
Mitchell Robinson, man, because especially right now, if obviously things change, if the Rockets decide to move on from Christian Wood, that's going to open up, front court minutes for Sengun, and they could very well do that. But right now, it's got to be Mitchell Robinson as a starter. Taj Gibson and Nerlens Noel both in and out of the lineup constantly. Mitchell Robinson's really the only healthy body there at the moment. So I like him just from a rebounds and blocks perspective.
It's a pretty low risk move here. I think you're getting in Mitchell Robinson, someone that you're getting consistent, 8 to 10 rebounds with blocks. So if that's what you need, go for it. Because right now Sengun, he's hurt, so he's not, and he's also not getting minutes. All right, that'll do it for the Week 14 look ahead. Make sure to check out actionnetwork.com with myself and Joe DeLira. We'll break down a summary of pretty much what we talked about here with some prop angles. Make sure to download the award-winning Action Network app to track all your bets and tail our experts. Make sure to download Prize Picks if you haven't already. Use promo code ACTION10. That's ACTION10. And they will match your first deposit up to $100. Adam can be found on Twitter at Adam Koffler. I'm at Dan Titus. Until next week, let's get buckets.